Joining me now, first class father, Justin Gaston. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's start like this. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I have two little girls, and they are 7 and 5, Olivia and Sophie.
Very cool. We going for that boy, or are we all done here?
No, we called it after two.
All right, sounds good. If you could, Justin, please take a second to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm an actor and a musician, husband and father. And I grew up in Louisiana, left home early at 17, went to New York and was modeling, came to LA and was modeling. And that sort of led, I was pursuing music, and that was kind of my way out, and ended up doing, a reality competition show called Nashville Star. And sort of that led me into getting my first acting agent. So music and acting are kind of always hand in hand and going back and forth, which is kind of perfect for this character of Noah, in this movie, God's Country Song, because he's a musician. So I got to act and also got to sing and do all this. So it was kind of the perfect role.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to jump into the movie in just a second here.
Yeah.
God's Country Song, streaming now on PureFlix. I'm going to hit on that just a second. But if you could, tell me, where were you at in your career? How old were you? And how did becoming a father change your perspective on life?
Oh, man. It changed everything for the better. I was kind of had moved more into acting and wasn't doing as much music at the time. When I was younger, I was going back and forth between LA and Nashville and writing a lot. And then, met my wife. We did a movie called Escapee together and met her. And so that sort of settled me down, I'd say, wasn't traveling, kind of wasn't, all over the place anymore. And that, I feel like that was a really good thing. And then oh God, I can't remember. I think I was 28 when Olivia was born. Was just sort of acting. Acting is this weird world where sometimes it's great and sometimes it's terrible. And, it can kind of like mess with you psychologically, mentally, if you let it. I feel fortunate to be grounded in like my faith, and my wife really helped that out first of all. But then becoming a father, I think it really helps you put life into perspective, and you really you get more of a sense of what I believe life is really about. Not that acting and movies and music isn't important, but I think it starts to shift, at least it shifted my focus on why am I doing these things? Like what lasting effect do I want these to have on my children and their children?
Yeah, well said, Justin. I know you adopted your first daughter.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was the decision to adopt? What was the adoption process like? And if you and your wife had the conversation on if or when you'll tell your daughter that she was adopted?
Yeah. So to answer the last question first, we've always been very open with it. As much as you can up until this point. She's 7, going on 8, so. There's some conversation had. I mean, we do like a huge celebration. A lot of people call it a gotcha day, like when that's sort of the day it becomes official with the state. And luckily she has a lot of friends who are adopted as well. And so they have gotcha days, and we call it her coronation day, like, Frozen, like because that was really popular when she was a baby. And so, it's just something like last year at our school, like everyone sang her like happy coronation day, and so it started to open. It was really beautiful because she had a couple of kids in her class that were adopted, and they were like, what is this? And they were like, we want that, so I feel like it's just a really beautiful, it's something that we're very proud of. It's something that, changed our lives for the better forever. It changed her life, and so it's something we want her to know. I mean, obviously at a certain age, it'll become her story to tell. And so we'll have to sort of partner with her in that. But I just think it's a really beautiful thing. I think it's a really beautiful picture of like God's love toward us. And so we're, for me, it's just the most amazing thing aside from my other daughter being born, that's ever happened to us. And I've blanked on the first question, but, yeah. So essentially, my wife and I got married. We've been married for 10 years now, and we're kind of, we're like, we want to start a family, and it just sort of wasn't happening, like we expected. And we were praying about it and like what's happening, and we're going to church, we're being prayed over in church, and it's just like just wasn't happening for us. And my wife kind of always wanted to adopt. It was something that was always on her heart, like from very young. And so I started praying about it and just felt like God was like, yeah, this is what this is what I'm calling you to do. And I mean, honestly, we decided to adopt. We From the time we decided, and it was like a 4 month process, which is kind of crazy and unheard of. And like, 4 months later, she was in our arms in the hospital, which is kind of this like whirlwind of we want to start a family, and you're like, and then all of a sudden, okay, and you're a family, which was really beautiful. And I kind of liked that, just being thrown into it because you don't have too much time to like think or overthink. And but yeah, it was definitely a God thing. I mean, I think, obviously I think it was preordained before the foundation of the earth, but that's my personal belief. So
Yeah, very cool, Justin. And I know your character, Noah, in the movie God's Country Song, doesn't adopt a child, but does find out that he has a child that's existed they didn't know about. So tell the listeners a little bit about God's Country Song, what they can
yeah,
expect. I know it's streaming now on PureFlix.
yeah, streaming on PureFlix. Yeah, so I even remember having this conversation with the director, Johnny, when we were talking about the role, and I was kind of talking about how I could relate to the character because, in a sense that sort of 4 month period between like, yeah, we're going to adopt to like like a nurse hands you a baby in a hospital and it's like, all right, good luck. It's kind of like, Noah's this country singer. He leaves his family, his mom, his dad on their farm in Arkansas to go pursue this career of being a country singer. And he struggles. He's just like we all do. He plays every dive bar and he's kind of gaining some momentum, gaining a fan base. He's about to go. His manager tells me he's about to go on this huge tour with this big country artist, and that's when he sort of finds out he has this son that he had no idea about. And so it's kind of this moment. He's got a strained relationship with his father because of the way he left the farm, and so he's kind of scared. He's scared because of that relationship. He's scared because he doesn't want to screw up this kid's life. It's just scary being a dad. I mean, even the thought of being a dad, there's a lot of weight, there's a lot of pressure, if you want to do it well. And so I just think all those things are going through his head. And he's at this crossroad in his life. He's like, am I going to do this? Am I going to step up and sort of, do the thing that I know is the right thing I know I should do? Or do I just cower and pursue my career and sort of throw my hands up? So it's a really beautiful movie about faith and family and second chances. And kind of to your point, I think this child in Noah's life, it could be the thing that really grounds him and really, centers him. And, the thing about being a dad is like, I mean, there's all sorts of secular studies that are just, it's so healthy for you because it takes all that you can't worry as much about yourself anymore. You have to worry about something else, which is just like a healthy thing for us to do. And so I think sort of for Noah, it becomes that healthy thing in his life that he sort of stops navel gazing and worrying about himself as much. And in doing so is able to sort of finally blossom and grow to be the person that he really could be.
Yeah, and I know that the movie does touch on so many of the things that are missing right now from our society, and that is faith, that is family. And so I think it's an important film. Again, God's Country Song, streaming on PureFlix. And I know faith is something that's important to you. It's important in my life as well. We always keep God first in our family. But what would you consider to be, Justin, the top values that you want to instill in your girls growing up, and how important is faith in that process?
Yeah, man. Oh, it's so like it just weighs on you, because it's like as a parent, you want to like give these things to your kids. It's like first and foremost, I want them to know Jesus and be known by him, and it's just something that it's like I'm like reading all these books and it's just this like, you can sort of work the soil and water it and do all these things, but only God can reveal himself to someone, and then it's like a personal decision. That's scary as a dad, because especially of younger kids, because you control so much of their life. Don't walk out in the street, don't do that. You can sort of protect them, and you're sort of like just trying to like nurture and reveal God's true nature and his loving nature, and sort of block out the lies of who he is. And I think that would be the biggest thing, that I would just try to like show them who God is, and his actual favor and grace and mercy towards them. So that through that love, they could come to know and love him.
Yeah, wow, very well said, Justin. And how about as far as obviously, singing, songwriting, acting, how much has becoming a father kind of impacted you as far as which particular roles you're going to choose to play, which particular songs you're going to write, which songs you're going to sing?
Yeah,
How much has becoming a father played into all that?
yeah. I mean, it changes everything. Because when you're I just released a song about this. It's called The One. It's on, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, all that, and it's under my full name, Justin Michael Gaston. And it's literally about this. It's just kind of like when you're young, you can make all these mistakes, and you sort of have to. You have to learn the hard way a lot of times, and it's like once you become a father, it's like, man, I can't really, I really need to start thinking more about what I'm doing and why I'm doing them, because my wife's an actress too, and it's like, it's interesting. They're like asking questions, they'll be like, oh, mommy, there's like your work husband, or there's your work dad. And so it's like, you're like, oh, wow, they're really taking all this in. Yeah, and I think it's really shifted my music too, obviously being a father and being a husband, it's like all my songs are either about my wife, my kids, or like God. That's kind of, because when you're younger, it's kind of about, oh, heartbreak and this and that. And it's like, I mean, and that stuff still happens. I wrote a lot of songs about my dad. He passed recently. So there's that, but it sort of shifts everything. Like, you're like, my kids are going to listen to this. And, there's things that they're going to see that, I wish I hadn't done. And that sort of, unless you make those mistakes, you just try to teach them from your mistakes so they don't have to make them.
Yeah, well, sorry to hear about your father. And
Yeah, thank you.
what about? I know you said you were married 10 years before you guys became parents, so you guys had a long relationship there. What was it like for you to finally see your wife Melissa become a mom and take on that role of motherhood?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, well, we've been married 10 years now. We were dating 2 years before. But yeah, it probably was, Sophie's 5 now. So, it was a long time into our relationship before, that, it was such a weird thing, because we were so, and I think this was such a God move. I know it was, but like, we I remember friends asking us, we had adopted Olivia, and we were just so content as a family. And I remember people like, you're gonna have another one, and we were just like so happy, like, I'm so content with our family dynamic. And then of course we immediately got pregnant, and we're overjoyed. And so I think it was just the right time. I think God had put us in the right headspace and the right frame of mind. And I think we were like, but you know that's sort of the thing. And the thing I want my kids to know is like, it's a thing you learn, like, in that situation. It's like, I'm so out of control of every like aspect. Like we can only conceive, like, if God is willing for us to conceive, and so with Olivia, like, her coming into our family that way, and Sophie coming into our family a different way, it's just like, I just hope they know that it's like all God. And it's like, that's how our family was created, was like, that was like God's plan for our life. So yeah, I think it just taught us a lot. And we're just like, yeah, we just love our girls more than anything.
Yeah, great stuff, Justin. And how about as far as the music front? I know you did American Idol, Nashville Star, and I
Yeah.
know that the way that all this music is consumed and the way that musical artists kind of come on the scene today is far different than the way it was years ago. So, what advice do you have for that new aspiring young artist, aspiring young singer, songwriter out there? Which is the best way for them to get going?
Yeah, it's so crazy how different it is, even from when I started, almost 20 years ago now. But it's just so different, like, it's kind of the whole YouTube and Instagram and building your own fan base, and you're not really going to get signed as an artist until you sort of have to create the brand yourself and do everything yourself now. Whereas if you were really talented before and sort of went out and played the right places and the right person saw you, I think my advice would be, I mean, you're gonna evolve as an artist so much. One thing I guess one thing I wish I had done differently is, like, I was in like great writing sessions and just didn't realize it. I was with like amazing artists, and I kind of was like, I don't think I was taking their advice as much as I wish I would have. So that'd be like one thing. It's like really find like really talented people around you. And obviously like, like kind of the music you want to make and like what you may want to say, but like I would, listen to the advice of people who have done it and are doing it and know what they're doing. That kind of be the first thing. And take it with a grain of salt, but you start hearing the same thing like over and over again. It's like, okay, there must be some merit to this. Yeah, that'd probably be the biggest thing. And just like you're going to get told no like a million times. So just evolve. Like I think my other thing that I'm finally like actually doing myself is like just make something that you're happy with and proud of and just put it out, because it's like the content war now. It's like you constantly have to put things out and put things out. And I think there's this thing like it's got to be perfect, and it's like, but it really doesn't. Like, I mean, make something that you love and that you're proud of, and just put it out, and don't like just sit there and harp on it. Put it out and move on. Like that's sort of the biggest pitfall is like you just over like one song or one album over and over again. It's like if you don't like it, just throw it and like move to the next thing, and kind of like because your music's gonna change. Like you're gonna evolve as an artist, and probably just don't take it like too seriously would be I don't know, that's like weird advice, but like
it's not. I would say, Justin, it's like we think that kind of like the piece of content we're going to put out. It's like we're going to put this out. It's going to within the 24-hour cycle. The number of pieces of content that have been uploaded to Instagram, YouTube, Twitter it's I don't even know if you can put a number on it. It's so much. So it's like, and if it does trend within 24 hours, it's gone off the board anyway. Yeah. So it's like we do fuss over it so much. I get what you're saying there, totally.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, I guess know why you're doing it, which is hard to figure out. But like, I think a lot of times it could be like weird ambitions or selfish ambitions. Just kind of goes back to this character. But I think like really ground yourself in like truth and kind of why you're doing what you're doing. And is this what God has like called me to do? I think is kind of would be my advice.
Well, right now you got God's Country Song streaming on PureFlix. What's in the pipeline for you here? What are you working on? What's coming up next?
Yeah, I'm kind of just trying to figure that out. I may be doing another movie soon, but it's kind of just, but definitely I'm going to be working on a new album. I'm in LA for the summer, but then when I go back to Nashville, I'm going to start working on an EP and hopefully put that out in the next couple months.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Where's the best place for people to find you? What's the link?
I'm only on Instagram. I don't, but it's J, just the letter J, Michael Gaston. Right. Yeah, and there's a link to the movie in there and to PureFlix, and then there's a link to the song The One.
Okay, I'll make sure I drop that in the description down below so everyone can check it out. Last thing I want to hit you with here, Justin, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
I'd imagine it's probably said a lot, but man, it just goes so fast, and just try to enjoy even the moments that seem like tedious or, hard, because you're going to blink your eye and they're going to be going off to kindergarten. And I think the other thing, probably I'll say the best advice, not the best advice, but I'll never forget my daughter it was like this thing for preschool, and it was, my daughter wasn't even going to be there. It was like my wife and I going, it's like, I don't know. And my dad looked at me and he said, go to everything. And just the look in his eye, he said, go to everything. I was like, oh God, like, it like hit me. I was like, because having been a dad, I was like, okay. And so that was kind of something every time there's something that I may or may not want to do, it's like, I just hear my dad's voice, like, just go to everything. 'Cause, it happens so quick. So it's kind of.
Very well said. I love the message. It's been a lot of fun for me. I got to say, Justin Gaston, you're a first class father all the way. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.